She endured a deeply embarrassing ordeal. During her wedding, each step she took down the Montclair Castle aisle felt oppressive, as if crushed under the weight of mocking stares. "Wait, that's the bride," someone derisively commented. They thought she was a member of the staff who was lost. Her dress was simple silk, lacking any embellishments, no shimmer, no train, no designer lace. She proceeded alone, without bridesmaids or family. And beneath the sound of clinking wine glasses arose whispers, cutting like knives. Was she deserted? She isn't suitable to be a billionaire's wife. Perhaps he reconsidered. A marriage arranged for compensation? Then the helicopter arrived. The individual everyone believed would be absent emerged, and in his hand he carried her father's. Montclair Castle stood as a stronghold of luxury. Its aged stones were situated on the cliffs of southern France, where lavender fields bordered the Mediterranean's sapphire glow. This was not simply a wedding location. It served as a prestigious platform for the world's elite. Global financiers, royalty, tech titans, and dynastic heirs were in attendance. These very halls had previously hosted the engagement of Monaco's princess, their chandeliers reflecting a rich history. No press entered through its iron gates, no paparazzi climbed its walls, and no social media presence marred the event. Invitations were meticulously hand-etched on vellum, each name representing a key to power. Rothschild, Windsor, and Musk were present. Crystal flutes clinked, diamonds sparkled, and each guest possessed a significant level of influence. The air was fragrant with rosewater and ambition, and the castle's gardens showcased a display of immense wealth. Away from the exclusive area, a retired schoolteacher observed on a private live stream, his delicate hands shaking, his eyes focused on his daughter's singular poise. Iris Lane entered the castle's magnificent hall, her unassuming silk dress moving gently, crafted by a friend from a Kenyan nonprofit. It featured no crystals, no striking designs, only understated sophistication. Her chestnut hair cascaded loosely, accented by a simple veil, and her hazel eyes held a composure that appeared to quiet the room. At 27, Iris possessed a striking beauty, unpolished by the trappings of high society, and evident in the natural grace of someone who had educated children beneath acacia trees and handled aid contracts in Nairobi's dusty offices. Growing up in a modest New York apartment, she had experienced the loss of her mother to leukemia at 12. Her father, currently struggling with late-stage cancer, was too unwell to journey, his hospital bed a distant reality. She had once envisioned attending Oxford, but instead opted for a career with a nonprofit, her spirit molded by a dedication to service, rather than a pursuit of prestige. She walked alone now, the sound of her used shoes soft on the marble floor, her unassuming appearance a striking contrast to the surrounding opulence of Versace and Dior. The assembled guests shifted as Iris entered, their gazes sharp and critical. Celeste Dupont, a French banking heiress wearing a $50,000 Dior gown, moved closer, her voice laced with scorn. "Who permitted the kitchen staff to approach the aisle?" she whispered, her words easily picked up by the private live stream. A wave of laughter spread amongst the crowd, diamonds sparkling, as phones were used to quietly record Iris's simple dress. Victor Langston, a tech mogul known for his $10,000 watch, smiled from his seat. "She's the bride? I thought she was delivering the cake," he remarked, eliciting laughter from his group. Iris gently touched her veil, maintaining a calm expression, yet the atmosphere was charged with derision. Her father's face on the live stream grew strained, the insults a blow to his pride, and the viewers felt a surge of anger, poised to erupt. As Iris walked down the aisle, the elite's disdain evolved into a planned attack. A flurry of irises and $30,000 gowns created a barrier, their voices a harsh, biting sound. "Look at her, assuming she deserves this castle," one remarked, flinging a silk napkin toward Iris's feet. "Back to the charity event, darling," another exclaimed, brandishing a phone adorned with diamonds. "She's a bride from a thrift store. I bet she's never even witnessed a real wedding." Phones illuminated, their personal messages cruel, referencing Iris as a Montclair outsider, focusing on her pre-owned shoes. A hedge fund tycoon exclaimed, "She's dragging this event into the gutter." The crowd's laughter felt like a public execution, with each word a lash against Iris's silence. Her father's face on the live stream showed pain, each taunt a blow to his daughter's dignity. The audience's anger intensified, their hearts pounding, furious at this mob's relentless cruelty. Amelia Westwood, Julian's cousin and a reluctant bridesmaid in a $20,000 Chanel dress, approached, her smirk sharp as a blade. "You have no support," she stated, her voice quiet but sharp, intended for Iris's ears only. "But perhaps you could make an effort to appear more refined?" A Prince of Monaco is seated in the front row. Her companions chuckled, their pearls reflecting the chandelier's glow, their murmured comments a harmful current. A beneficiary, without lineage. Iris straightened, her hazel eyes meeting Amelia's, resolute but with a tremor in her neck. The guests' laughter rose, their disdain a display of shame. Her father's hands trembled on the live stream, tears reflecting the light, but he focused on his daughter's strength. The audience's anger intensified, their hearts aching for her as her reputation was challenged. Amelia's criticisms became more pointed, her voice rising to make sure the live stream captured each phrase. "You're a blemish on the Westwood legacy," she declared, her Chanel dress sparkling under the chandeliers. "That gown, that veil, did you obtain them from a second-hand store? You'll never be accepted here." The sound of her heels echoed, their laughter a harsh chorus, as phones focused on Iris's simple silk dress. "You're a nobody benefiting from Julian's reputation," Amelia stated, her smile sharp and pointed. "He deserves a queen, not someone of lesser means." Iris's fingers pressed tighter on her veil, her hazel eyes revealing a hidden strength, though her expression remained calm. Her father's hands shook as he watched the live stream, the personal insult wounding his daughter's sense of value. The audience's anger intensified, their feelings of sadness for Iris growing as they reacted to this calculated attack on her identity and love. The murmurings of the crowd became louder, their sense of privilege creating a protective barrier around Iris. A wife of a Russian oligarch, wearing a $30,000 Givenchy gown, turned to her husband. She commented about Iris's mother's absence, questioning if it was due to a lack of a ticket or funds. Her voice was audible on the live stream. Her friends chuckled, their jewelry sparkling, with one remarking, "It must be a charity wedding. He is engaged in humanitarian efforts, facilitated by marriage." Devices emitted light, subtly recording Iris's plain veil, with accompanying messages appearing in personal conversations, a misjudgment in Hat Montclair. Oliver Crane, the son of a British lord, commented, "She appears to have stepped out of a soup kitchen." Amusement reverberated within the castle's stone walls, each word feeling like a stone thrown at Iris's heart. She straightened her veil, maintaining a steady smile, her silence acting as a defense against their malice. A wave of anger surged through the audience, their outrage at this planned cruelty a palpable force. The castle's employees, accustomed to remaining unseen, participated in the taunting with quiet remarks. A waiter, offering champagne, halted near Iris, speaking softly but clearly. "Miss, the staff entrance is over there," he stated, indicating a side door, his smile reflected in the expressions of other attendees. "We don't generally permit guests to stand at the altar," he continued, prompting laughter from the privileged. Cameras recorded Iris's serene expression, their intimate messages circulating. Wedding fraud. The audience's applause felt like a crushing wave, their self-importance a visible condemnation. Iris straightened her veil, her hazel eyes steady, but her father's live stream showed his face marked with distress, revealing the staff's involvement in a new act of deception. The viewers' anger reached its highest point, their pulses racing at this systemic injustice, their resentment poised to erupt. Upon Iris's arrival at the altar, the groom's absence felt like a new blow. Julian Westwood, the founder of Westwood Intelligence, who controls 40% of the global AI market, was missing. There was no music and no quartet played. The officiant, a silver-haired dignitary in a tailored suit, remained silent, his eyes moving uneasily. The guests looked at each other, their murmurs increasing. Had he abandoned her? A Dutch heiress murmured, her $15,000 earrings shifting. Whispers circulated about him still seeing that Italian model. One person commented, their voice picked up by the live stream's concealed microphones. Perhaps this entire situation was a publicity maneuver, someone suggested. Mary then vanish. Iris remained solitary, her simple dress sharply contrasting with the vacant spot next to her. Her hazel eyes focused on the distant view. Her father's expression on the live stream faltered, the rejection a painful blow, and the audience's anger intensified, hoping for this public humiliation to cease. The live stream transformed into a space of harsh judgment, intensifying the elite's disdain for a worldwide audience. Phones illuminated, guests sharing messages in private chats, their comments a public condemnation. Nana Mebride, one read, focusing on Iris's simple veil. "She's a fraud," another posted, disseminated by a royal's cousin. A guest exclaimed, "Bet she paid to wear that gown," which triggered a surge of laughter that resonated throughout the hall. The live stream's hidden comments overflowed with messages like, "Cancel the wedding," and "Imposter." A woman wearing an Oscar de la Renta gown valued at $40,000 loudly protested. Her actions were seen as disrespectful to the castle. Calls for intervention arose. Iris's hands remained composed, her hazel eyes focused on the altar, while her father's expression on the live stream revealed intense distress, each online comment a source of pain for his daughter. The audience's outrage grew, their feelings sympathetic to Iris, hoping for this widespread embarrassment to cease. The castle's employees, accustomed to remaining unseen, subtly participated in the derision. As a waiter passed, offering champagne, he stopped near Iris, speaking softly but clearly. "Miss, the staff entrance is over there," he stated, indicating a side door, his expression echoed by those around him. "We typically don't allow guests to stand at the altar," he added, prompting amusement from the assembled elite. Numerous phones recorded Iris's composed face, their personal messages flying with speculation. Wedding fraud. The collective acceptance felt overwhelming, their sense of superiority a public display of judgment. Iris adjusted her veil, her hazel eyes unwavering, but her father's live stream feed showed his face etched with pain, revealing the staff's complicity in a fresh betrayal. The audience's anger intensified, their hearts pounding at this institutional cruelty, their outrage a fire ready to explode. The whispers grew into a crescendo, the guests scorn a global spectacle via the private live stream. A German tech heiress posted about no-name bride, zooming in on Iris's plain gown. A guest texted, describing her as a nobody, a message shared by a royal's cousin. The wife of a French diplomat exclaimed, "Bet she forged her invitation." This sparked laughter that resonated throughout the hall. The live stream's hidden comments became a torrent. "Cancel the wedding," one read. "Fraud." Another woman, wearing a $25,000 Valentino dress, declared, "She's humiliating the Westwood name." Someone urgently called for an intervention. Iris's hands remained steady, her hazel eyes focused on the altar, but her father's face on the live stream displayed profound distress, each digital interaction feeling like a painful setback for his daughter. The audience's displeasure surged, their emotions with Iris, yearning for this staged cruelty to cease. The quiet lingered, the altar vacant, the guests' presence a constant barrage. Then, a faint hum filled the air, rotating blades cutting through the sky. A helicopter landed on Montclair's back lawn, its black frame gleaming, its roar silencing the whispers. The doors opened and Julian Westwood stepped out, his tailored jacket dusted with snow, his tie undone, a leather case in hand. But the man beside him caused a stir, Iris's father, frail, his hospital gown replaced with a simple suit, his eyes bright with pride. Julian had flown to New York, engaged an international medical team, and arranged the flight to bring him here. A hush fell over the audience, their phones shaking, as the live stream exploded with activity. A collective gasp arose. Was that her father? Iris's hazel eyes grew wide, her breath paused, her composure faltering for the first time. The audience's spirits lifted, their frustration transforming into wonder, the reality a revelation. Julian didn't approach the VIP carpet. He sprinted, visibly running, across the lawn, his shoes disappearing into the grass, his blue eyes fixed on Iris. He arrived at the altar, out of breath, and clasped her hand, his voice strained. Please accept my apologies for the delay, but I pledged I would always ensure you weren't left unsupported. He addressed the attendees, his expression intense. This day marks not my wedding, but a ceremony celebrating the individual who enabled me to feel deserving of love. He indicated the officiant, and then exited the dressing room. After 5 minutes, he reappeared wearing a plain white tuxedo, devoid of cufflinks and any unnecessary embellishment. The assembly made way for him, their disapproval diminishing to a distant murmur, their mobile devices momentarily disregarded. Iris's father sat in the front row, wiping away quiet tears, his presence affirming Julian's commitment. The livestream comments flooded in, reading, "This is unreal. Hatch Iris and Julian." The wedding commenced, the atmosphere in the castle's electric with sincerity. As Julian positioned himself beside Iris, he addressed the assembled guests, his voice powerful enough to quiet any remaining murmurs. "You ridiculed my wife, believing her to be inadequate alone," he declared, his blue eyes intensely focused. "Iris Lane remains the core of this castle, and you will be held accountable for your actions." He presented a tablet, showing canceled agreements, suspended accounts, and terminated collaborations. "Each of you who mocked me, your names are removed from my network," he stated, his eyes fixed on Amelia. "You, cousin, are excluded from the Westwood Empire completely." The assembly reacted with shock, their jewels losing their brilliance, their standing diminishing. Celeste DuPont's banking arrangements collapsed, Victor Langston's technology corporation weakened, and the livestream became viral. Justice prevailed, Ren influence solidified, and Iris remained composed, her simple dress appearing regal, her victory confirmed by Julian's fury. The viewers applauded, their spirits lifted as his power diminished the arrogance of the influential. Iris's history remained unknown, whether to the attendees, not Amelia, or the livestream audience. At 20, she demonstrated exceptional linguistic ability, achieving fluency in 5 languages, and her work with nonprofits in Kenya connected assistance to isolated villages. She instructed children in schools constructed of mud, her earnings just enough to cover rent, her emotional development influenced by her mother's passing and her father's bravery. She encountered Julian at a Nairobi conference. Her translation of a refugee's account inspired him to financially support her organization. Their affection developed discreetly, away from public attention, based on common principles, rather than material possessions. She now stood at Montclair, her simple gown a statement against the elite's perceived disdain, her heart filled with a fierce determination to expose their falsehoods. The wedding ceremony was understated. There was no orchestra, no elaborate floral decorations, only Iris and Julian at the altar, their hands joined. The officiant spoke with a calm voice, his words a solemn promise of commitment, honor, and enduring love. Iris's father stood, visibly weakened but steadfast, and took her hand, leading her to Julian. The guests stood, the memory of their previous harshness a burden they carried, their quietness a strained politeness. Julian's gaze remained fixed on Iris, his self-esteem a suppressed intensity. The livestream recorded their promises, with comments appearing rapidly. "She's a queen, a Montclair miracle." The castle's order changed, its entrances opening further, its essence redefined by a woman who had faced rejection and now seemed beyond reproach. Julian moved ahead, needing no amplification, his voice sharp and clear. "I heard every word that was said, and I am aware of who spoke." He turned to Amelia, his cousin, his expression chilling. "You invoked the Westwood name to disparage my wife? You are hereby removed from every family trust established under my name." Her Chanel dress appeared to droop, her smirk vanished, her standing diminished. He addressed the guests, his blue eyes fierce. "Those of you who questioned her worth, who referred to her as the bride with no name, you are no longer included in any of my future deals. Ever." A hush fell over the assembly, their jewels losing their luster, their power wavering. Celeste DuPont's glass broke upon the marble floor, Victor Langston's timepiece ceased functioning, Oliver Crane's distinction proved insignificant. The livestream rapidly gained global prominence, with Iris Lane dominating social media, her lone walk becoming a celebrated event. The elite's decline was instantaneous, their pride collapsing under Julian's direction. Amelia's complexion paled, her financial resources cut off, her influence dispersing as their humiliation spread online. Celeste DuPont's banking empire encountered sanctions, her derision a public embarrassment. Victor Langston's tech agreements were terminated, his contempt a critical error. The Russian oligarch's wife departed, her Givenchy gown offering no protection from the rumors. She disrespected Westwood's bride. Oliver Crane's lordship was the subject of ridicule, his wagers a humiliation. The employees who had sneered were dismissed, their careers ended. The attendees who had laughed were denied access, their standing diminished. Iris stood beside Julian, her simple veil a quiet crown, her hazel eyes unwavering. The live stream recorded the outcome, comments appearing rapidly, they received what was due. Hail Iris resonated within the audience's hearts, their anger shifting into pride. Iris's victory and Julian's fury, a blaze that consumed the elite's injustice. The repercussions were immediate, a resolution brought without words. Amelia retreated into the castle's shadows, her trust fund depleted, her followers avoiding her. Celeste DuPont's banking empire underwent audits, her disdain a public mark. Victor Langston's tech deals failed, his derision a widely shared error. The Russian oligarch's wife departed, her Givenchy gown offering no protection from the rumors. She criticized Westwood's wife. Oliver Crane's lordship was ridiculed, his wagers a shame. The employees who had sneered were terminated, their identification removed, their careers ended. The attendees who had laughed dispersed, their invitations canceled, their power diminished. Iris stood beside Julian, her simple gown gleaming, her hazel eyes gentle yet firm. The audience's hearts pounded, their anger changing into pride. Iris's victory was a force that consumed the elite's harshness. Iris's father sat in the front row, his tears silent, his suit a gift from Julian. He rose again, took Iris's hand, and placed it in Julian's, his voice a whisper. You've always been enough. The castle rose, no one daring to remain seated, not because of Julian's power, but because of Iris's eyes. Eyes that had witnessed loss, service, and love, and now radiated a strength that humbled the elite. Julian held her hand, their vows a promise of truth. No tiara adorned her, no $100,000 gown clothed her, but Montclair belonged to her. A monument to a woman who'd walked alone and made the world bow. She possessed no noble name, no dynasty behind her, no diamonds on her wrist. She possessed something unique compared to everyone else at Montclair, a man prepared to abandon everything simply to hold her hand. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more, and let us know in the comments, would you have stood alone like Iris did? They requested she tackle a complex math problem, not for the solution itself, but to observe her discomfort, hesitation, and silence. Within a seminar room populated by tailored suits and PhD name tags, she arrived wearing worn canvas shoes and a creased shirt. Did you take a wrong turn, ma'am? Someone chuckled, this isn't the PDA meeting. However, as her hand grasped the marker and countless eyes anticipated her failure, the whiteboard began to reveal something entirely different. The Ascension Forum at St. Lennox University stood as a cathedral of intellect, its ancient brick walls draped in ivy, its seminar halls aglow with chandeliers worth more than Manhattan penthouses. This exclusive conference, reserved for Ivy League PhDs and million-dollar AI research sponsors, featured tailored wool suits, silk ties, and name tags boasting titles like Chair of Quantum Computing. Polished oak tables held crystal water pitchers, and the air carried notes of oud and ambition. A limited number, just 300 attendees, received invitations, and their sapphire badges were verified by staff wearing velvet vests. Outside the main hall, a marble atrium provided access to a private lecture theater, with its doors designated solely for keynote speakers. Lillian Moore Bellamy entered through a less conspicuous entrance. Her jeans were worn, her simple t-shirt was tucked into a cardigan featuring worn cuffs, and her chestnut hair was pulled back with a rubber band. At 31, raised in a modest town in Vermont, she had taught herself advanced mathematics while caring for her ailing mother, and had turned down PhD offers from Harvard, MIT, and Princeton. She held a thick notebook filled with handwritten formulas. It was her only companion besides her husband, Dr. Henry Bellamy, the forum's keynote speaker. The hall's stairs felt oppressive, their whispers a gathering storm. Lillian seemed out of place within the forum, her notebook a stark contrast to the elite's carefully constructed environment. A Yale professor, wearing a $4,000 Zegna suit and displaying a sapphire badge, halted his discussion. He questioned aloud, loud enough for others to hear, if she was his bag holder. A Stanford researcher, dressed in a $3,000 Armani blazer, laughed softly, nodding to his colleague, suggesting she might be his new girlfriend, someone who hadn't attended college. A wave of laughter echoed through the seminar room, with attendees attempting to hide smiles behind their hands. Lillian remained composed, her hazel eyes focused, a notebook held close. She had come to offer encouragement to Henry, whose work she had subtly influenced. The audience's frustration grew, feeling the sharp sting of these academic authorities' dismissive behavior and their contempt for Lillian's calm demeanor. The ridicule intensified, a harsh and pointed performance led by the forum's prominent members. Becca Sloan, a third-year PhD candidate from St. Lennox, moved forward, her tailored Chanel skirt swaying, her blonde ponytail as crisp as her expression. At 26, having grown up in Boston's elite circles, she was known for her dismissive attitude towards competitors. She looked at Lillian's worn cardigan and showed disapproval. "Ma'am, this area is designated for main speakers only. Free coffee is available downstairs," she stated, her voice precise. The attendees reacted with laughter, the sound reverberating through the oak walls. Becca swung her ponytail, releasing a wave of jasmine-scented perfume, a fragrance Lillian was aware Henry found unpleasant. Lillian's grip on her notebook intensified, her expression composed, yet the audience's anger escalated, their pulses racing at this direct challenge, Becca's confidence appearing like a flame in the cold air. The disapproval intensified, a planned and focused criticism of Lillian's participation. A conference staff member, Margaret Voss, moved forward, her tailored vest neat, her face showing years of upholding established rules. At 50, raised in upstate New York, she took pride in maintaining order. She indicated the exit, her voice steady but not unkind. "Let's go, miss. You're disrupting the session." The crowd responded with cheers, their silk ties gleaming as they gestured toward the atrium. A Princeton alum, dressed in a $5,000 Brioni suit, called out, "Did you get lost? This isn't the community college." Laughter erupted, academics subtly bumping shoulders. A postdoc whispered, "She doesn't even look like a grad student." Someone added, "That notebook's probably just doodles and she dares sit here?" The insults felt like a guillotine, each word a blow against Lillian's silence. The audience's anger grew, their hearts aching for Lillian, and their frustration directed at this group's harsh treatment. The academics' disapproval became sharp as Lillian stood in the seminar room, their derision a deliberate attack intended to diminish her resolve. Near the oak tables, a group of Ivy League professors, dressed in $7,000 Seville Row suits, assembled, their voices forming a harsh blend. "She's a detriment to this forum's reputation," one remarked, gesturing with a gold fountain pen towards Lillian's worn cardigan. "Return to the library, dear," another suggested, displaying a sapphire badge and adding, "Her notebook appears as if purchased at a secondary school sale." Amusement rippled through the gathering, with staff members subtly acknowledging each other, their cufflinks sparkling. A quantum computing expert exclaimed, "She's an insult to every paper presented here." The remarks felt like a guillotine, each word a blade against Lillian's poised silence. Henry's lecture theater loomed beyond the hall, but the seminar room's disdain was a crushing weight. The audience's frustration grew, their hearts pounding, angered by this orchestrated cruelty, their ire ignited, ready to challenge the elite's arrogance. Becca Sloan delivered another sharp comment, deliberately intended to unsettle Lillian in front of the select group. "So, what understanding do you expect to gain at a forum like this?" she asked, her Chanel skirt reflecting the light as she stood at Lillian's table. "Or should we administer a freshman entrance exam to familiarize you with the subject?" She didn't pause for a response, instead heading to the whiteboard where she began writing a complex combinatorics problem. one that had previously challenged her own research group. "If I solve this before the coffee break ends, I'll publicly apologize and get your coffee for a week," she stated, her voice loud enough to silence nearby murmurs. "If not, kindly step aside and make room for real academics." The attendees cheered, their scorn a suffocating tide, their whispers buzzing. "She's a fraud." Lillian's hazel eyes burned with quiet fire, but her smile held a shield against the challenge. The audience's anger surged, their hearts aching for Lillian, outraged by this public humiliation displayed before them. The elite's contempt became intensely personal, their voices a sharp and bitter chorus. A Harvard professor, dressed in a $6,000 khitan suit, rested against the seminar table, his voice harsh and dismissive. "She's insignificant, likely here to collect Bellamy's notes," he remarked, indicating Lillian's notebook. "Notice that cardigan. Did she make it herself?" His colleagues chuckled, their sapphire badges glinting. An MIT postdoc exclaimed, "She's an embarrassment to whoever let her in." The crowd's laughter felt overwhelming, their arrogance felt like a public condemnation. Lillian tightened her rubber band, her hazel eyes steady, but the seminar room's disapproval felt like a heavy burden. The audience's frustration intensified, their hearts racing at this perceived institutional failing, their anger threatening to disrupt the forum's decorum. Becca Sloan's disapproval intensified, her words a deliberate attempt to embarrass Lillian before the seminar room's distinguished attendees. "She's not just out of place, she's a disgrace," she stated, her Chanel skirt catching the light as she indicated Lillian's canvas shoes. "Henry must be horrified to see this. Nobody in his session." Her group responded with laughter, their silk scarves waving, their eyes briefly looking at Lillian's notebook. "She's a charity case, not a scholar," Becca remarked, her voice strong enough to stop nearby whispers. The attendees responded with cheers, their scorn a heavy atmosphere, their comments a constant hum. "She's a fake." Lillian's hazel eyes held a quiet intensity, but her smile remained, a defense against the disloyalty. The lecture theater shone in the distance, yet the seminar room's disapproval felt overwhelming. The audience's anger surged, their feelings sympathetic toward Lillian. The room was filled with anger as this PhD candidate's actions were revealed. The staff's involvement only intensified the disappointment, appearing as a further breach of trust. A session coordinator, Clara Holt, wearing a tailored blazer, addressed the situation, her tone laced with disdain. "Miss, general seating is located in the atrium," she stated, gesturing towards a side door, her slight smile echoed by nearby academics. "We do not allow guests of this nature in the main hall," she continued, prompting laughter from the assembled group. At 28, having grown up in Connecticut, Clara valued her role in controlling access. The crowd's endorsement felt like an overwhelming force, their condescension a very public shaming. Lillian held her notebook, her hazel eyes focused, but the seminar room's disapproval felt oppressive. The audience's anger rose, their hearts racing at this form of institutional rejection, their resentment burning against St. Lennox's reputation. The seminar room staff's disapproval became obvious, their actions a public embarrassment seemingly intended for the academics' entertainment. A senior usher, Richard Tate, confronted Lillian close to the oak tables. His velvet vest was immaculate, and his voice conveyed condescension. "Miss, this hall is reserved for registered attendees only," he stated, ensuring the surrounding audience could hear. He indicated her jeans with a gesture, and a smirk echoed across nearby staff. "The Ascension Forum doesn't usually permit such simplicity," he noted, which prompted laughter from the academics and coordinators. The audience's affirmation felt overwhelming, their perceived superiority a stark display. Lillian held her notebook, her hazel eyes steady, but the seminar room's disapproval felt heavy. The audience's anger surged, their hearts racing at this perceived institutional slight, their indignation intense against the forum's principles. The intensity of the criticism escalated, their words a sharp and bitter barrage. A Cornell researcher, dressed in a $4,000 Canali suit, leaned forward, his voice raised and critical. "She's a fraud, likely attempting to spy on Bellamy's work," he said, his colleagues agreeing with nods, their cufflinks gleaming. "Her notebook is a mere prop, a deceptive tactic to appear inconspicuous. Another added, raising his voice, "She's a deceiver, and the forum has been misled." Derisive laughter echoed, each accusation a painful blow aimed at Lillian. Rumors circulated, with accusations spreading quickly. It was said she was trying to take his research. Lillian subtly twisted a rubber band, maintaining her composure, but the public's defamation felt heavy. The audience's frustration boiled over, many sympathizing with Lillian, their anger a powerful force against these false accusations, eager for the truth to expose the elite's deceit. Lillian remained silent, her eyes dry, her arms holding the notebook, the record of her life's work, a collection of formulas that had influenced Henry's career. She moved to the whiteboard, her canvas shoes quiet on the oak floor, and took the marker. The room was still, many eyes watching to see if she would hesitate. Her lines were steady, purposeful, without tremor, no deletions, and no adjustments. Within 3 minutes, the board displayed a complex solution, a level 2 supersymmetric permutation model rendered in graceful lines. She placed the marker and returned to her seat, her hazel eyes unwavering. Becca scoffed. "That's it? Are you certain you didn't make a mistake?" The audience's emotions shifted, their frustration turning to excitement, Lillian's calm resolve a focal point. An experienced professor, Dr. Arthur Wren, stood up from the front row, his tweed jacket showing signs of age but retaining its dignified appearance. At 70, a legend in combinatorics, he moved slowly toward the board, his glasses glinting, his expression changing from composed to stunned. This is the shortest known solution to this problem," he said, his voice trembling. "She employed a supersymmetric model, something the advisory board hasn't even fully proven yet." The room fell silent, crystal pictures wavering, gasps spreading through the perfumed air. Attendees rose, gathering around the board, their sapphire badges glinting. Who is she? Questions arose about her identity. What was her origin? Becca's Chanel skirt appeared to fade, her ponytail offering no defense against the reality. The audience's sense of accomplishment grew, their hearts pounding as Lillian's skill altered the seminar room's power dynamic. The atmosphere changed as the keynote session commenced, with the crowd assembling in the lecture theater. Henry Bellamy approached the stage, his gray suit well-made but not ostentatious, his arrival impactful. At 40, raised in Chicago, he had received the Fields Medal for his work on algorithmic symmetry, much of it built on Lillian's unseen contributions. He adjusted the microphone, his gray eyes meeting Lillian's in the front row. "I'd like to relinquish my speaking time to someone far more deserving," he said, his voice steady. "This is Lillian Moore Bellamy, who turned down 3 PhD offers from Harvard, MIT, and Princeton to care for her ailing mother. The individual who authored 80% of the core algorithms in my research, and the only person in this room who genuinely understands the genesis of this problem." The audience's spirits lifted, their anger shifting to admiration, as Henry's explanation clarified the deception that had restricted Lillian. The room fell silent. Becca Sloane's coffee cup slipped from her grasp, breaking on the oak floor. Henry spoke, his voice sharp in the quiet, stating, "She doesn't require formal recognition. She doesn't need awards. She possesses brilliance, a quality none of us present can assert." The attendees' cufflinks appeared to lose their luster, their expressions strained with surprise. Clara Holt remained still, her role as gatekeeper a clear admission of defeat. Henry indicated Lillian, his hand unwavering. "This forum extended an invitation to me, but it is her contributions that warrant your appreciation." The audience cheered, their fury transformed into pride as Lillian's truth began to reshape the forum's legacy. Dr. Wren nodded, his glasses glinting with respect, the room holding its breath awaiting her response. Lillian rose, her frayed cardigan a quiet crown, and took the microphone. "I didn't come to prove anything," she said, her voice soft but clear. "I came to support my husband." She paused, her hazel eyes sweeping the room, adding, "But since you asked for a solution, I have offered one." The auditorium burst into applause, the attendees rising to their feet in a wave of admiration. Becca Sloane lowered her head, her Chanel skirt offering no comfort, and quietly apologized to Mrs. Moore Bellamy. Representatives from MIT, Stanford, and Caltech moved forward, their collaborative offers presented with unsteady hands. Lillian smiled, clasped Henry's hand, and remarked, "I just came to take you home for lunch." The audience responded with a powerful cheer, witnessing her poise dismantle the elite's presumptions. The consequences were swift, a judgment communicated without words. Becca Sloan was called before the advisory board, her research funding withdrawn, and her reputation served as a warning to those present. Clara Holt was moved to administrative roles, ending her career of controlling access. The Harvard professor who had ridiculed Lillian's cardigan was barred from participating in further discussions, effectively removing his impact. The Cornell researcher's grant proposals were denied, and his defamatory statements were revealed as falsehoods. Those who had previously shown scorn were addressed with consequences, and their positions lessened. Individuals who disseminated rumors concealed their credentials, their influence negated. Lillian stood next to Henry, her canvas shoes grounded, her notebook demonstrating her integrity. The audience's emotions resonated powerfully, their frustration changing to jubilation, Lillian's success shining brightly and diminishing the standing of the forum's leaders within St. Lennox's esteemed buildings. Henry Bellamy dominated the lecture theater, his voice cutting through the chandelier-lit air like a gavel. "You dared to question Lillian Moore Bellamy," he stated, his gray eyes radiating controlled fury, the architect of this forum's most significant insights. He raised a tablet displaying a list of consequences: Becca Sloan's research grants, Clara Holt's conference privileges, and academic advisory roles, all revoked by St. Lennox addressed the board. "Your names are erased from academic circles," he stated, his gaze fixed on Becca. "You've lost more than prestige, you've lost your futures." The crowd's gasps echoed as a wave of shock. With their empires collapsing under his direction, Lillian stood alongside him, her worn cardigan appearing bright, her victory assured by Henry's immense power. The elite's failure was a striking display, their overconfidence destroyed under Henry's direction. Becca Sloan retreated, her Chanel skirt seeming inappropriate, her standing a lesson to those present. Clara Holt's power crumbled, her disapproval a matter of public record, her attendance guiding her towards the atrium exit. The Columbia professor's funding disappeared, his defamation revealing his falsehoods. The professors who'd idly written with pens concealed their cufflinks, their positions as advisors terminated. The staff who'd previously expressed disdain were let go, their professional paths concluded. Those who had circulated rumors faced rejection, their power fading. Lillian remained composed, her canvas shoes a subtle sign of strength, her hazel eyes resolute. The audience's emotions surged, their anger shifting to admiration, Lillian's triumph and Henry's fury dominating the forum's esteemed chambers. A wave of applause filled the hall as his widespread condemnation diminished the arrogance of the world's leading figures. Lillian's history remained a mystery, unknown to the attendees, not Becca, and not the staff. At 20, she tackled differential equations while caring for her mother, her diner earnings paying for textbooks. At 25, she encountered Henry at a math symposium, her understated intelligence captivating him amidst a gathering of prominent figures. Their marriage, a secluded promise in a Vermont meadow, was founded on affection and mutual mathematical understanding. Becca's challenge, the staff's badges, the academic's attire, none compared to the significance of the notebook Lillian possessed. She now stood in the lecture theater, her rubber band a testament to her truth, her silence a furnace that burned through their lies. The forum resumed, but the attendees' eyes remained on Lillian. A Caltech dean approached, his voice low with respect. "Mrs. Moore Bellamy, your work is extraordinary," he said, referencing his earlier scorn or regret. The academics retreated, their influence null, their aides scrambling to salvage ties with St. Lennox. The sponsors lingered, their influence wavering in Lillian's presence. She proceeded toward the atrium, her hazel eyes following Henry's pleased smile. The chandeliers softened, the autumn light lessening, leaving a procession of the world's most powerful individuals hoping for her attention, their gestures a quiet acknowledgement of the woman they had previously belittled. She was presented with a complex mathematical problem, not because a solution was required, but because they desired to observe her hesitate, falter, and become speechless. The seminar room was full of people in tailored suits and PhD name tags. She arrived wearing faded canvas shoes and a wrinkled shirt. However, when she held the marker and hundreds of eyes anticipated a misstep, the whiteboard revealed something unexpected. True brilliance doesn't require fanfare. It simply needs to be expressed. And the room responded with admiration. Like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this, and tell us in the comments, what would you do if you were Lillian? The moment she arrived on the red carpet, she was dismissed. Her outfit consisted of a simple linen dress, strappy flat sandals, and loose, unstyled hair. She carried a stack of black and white papers in her hand, without a binder or any visible branding. A businesswoman subtly adjusted her Cartier necklace, offered a brief look, and remarked, "Since when do charity galas welcome the locals?" A fashion model turned to her companions and stifled a laugh. She appears to have stepped out of a public library, not a billionaire ball. Rose Avery stood quietly at the VIP check-in. No one inquired about her name. No one examined the invitation she held. To them, she possessed no worth, merely a fleeting amusement in a glittering room, a woman too quiet, too plain, to be taken seriously. However, they were mistaken. The woman they had just humiliated was the actual owner of the entire gala, and the one who held absolute power over the very ecosystem they depended on. The Avery Global Gala stood as the event of the year, taking place in Washington, D.C. At the luxurious Meridian House, a mansion known for its chandeliers and rich history. More than a fundraiser, it represented a strategic competition where prominent figures, senators, CEOs, celebrities, and media moguls, contended for influence. The guest list was carefully selected, with only 200 invitations extended, each serving as a coveted entry into the upper echelons of American wealth and politics. A palpable excitement filled the atmosphere as attendees awaited news of the largest grants, the most esteemed collaborations, or a favorable review from the Avery Foundation, the powerful entity that dictated funding for areas ranging from education to defense contracts. Rose Avery moved through the gathering discreetly, her canvas backpack resting on her shoulder, her proposal for a complimentary community library held securely beneath it. Months were spent developing the plan, filled with a deep commitment to literacy and empowerment for children in underserved neighborhoods. The soft ivory, second-hand linen dress with its square neck moved gently as she walked. Her sandals made a quiet clicking sound on the marble floor. She chose not to wear makeup; it wasn't necessary. Her face was remarkable in its simplicity, with pronounced cheekbones and eyes that reflected a quiet determination. However, to the gala's guests, she was unnoticed or even a target. The lobby presented a scene of elaborate couture gowns and perfectly tailored tuxedos, with diamonds catching the light. A tech billionaire, sporting a velvet blazer, expressed disdain as Rose walked by, asking, "What's she doing here? Distributing flyers for a bake sale?" A congresswoman's aide, enjoying a glass of champagne, whispered to her superior, "Have they begun inviting anyone who walks in off the sidewalk?" She appears as though she instructs yoga at a local community center. A wave of laughter echoed among their group, precise and critical. Rose remained unfazed. She continued walking, her gaze fixed ahead and her pace even, as though the voices around her were merely ambient sound. Approaching the VIP check-in, an employee wearing a tailored black suit gave her a cursory look. "Name?" he inquired, his voice precise, seemingly certain she wasn't authorized. Rose presented her invitation, a simple card featuring a single, raised A. However, before she could respond, a woman adorned in a sequined gown pushed past her. "Pardon me, I am on the guest registry," the woman stated, displaying a wrist covered in diamonds. A staffer allowed her entry, disregarding Rose completely. "Ma'am," he said, addressing her, "this area is reserved for priority guests. Please try the general seating in the back." Rose acknowledged this, remaining calm, and moved aside. She offered no objections, spoke no protests. She simply stood there, holding her papers, her face calm but resolute. It was then that a young man wearing a well-cut navy suit, Evan Caldwell, the senator's son who has 1 million followers on social media, noticed her. He retrieved his phone, a smirk playing on his lips, and began recording. "Hey, watch this," he said to his live stream, adjusting the camera to focus on Rose. This woman believes she's attending the Avery Gala wearing a second-hand dress and carrying a pile of printer paper. Seriously, are you planning to present a free library proposal to billionaires? Best of luck, dear. His viewers immediately filled the chat with laughing emojis and mocking remarks. She's certainly brave, Evan said with a laugh, zooming in on her sandals. But this is an entirely different level of unrealistic. The audience reacted strongly, their laughter escalating in volume and intensity. A reality TV star, wearing a red dress with a low neckline, joined in the mocking, tossing her hair. "Honey, this isn't a PDA meeting. Go home and change," she said. A hedge fund manager, his cufflinks catching the light, added, "She's probably here to request funding. She should have at least chosen a more appropriate outfit." Rose remained motionless, her eyes following the detailed ceiling trim as if committing it to memory. She offered no reply, avoiding their stares. Her silence wasn't a sign of vulnerability, it was a barrier, unwavering and composed. While Rose waited near the VIP check-in, a cluster of young heiresses in dazzling gowns gathered around her, observing her like predators. One, holding a Chanel purse, glanced at Rose's cloth backpack and scoffed, "Is that her bag? I wouldn't use it to carry my dog's toys." Another approached, her voice laced with malice, "Sweetie, this is the Avery Gala, not a soup kitchen. Why don't you spare us all the discomfort and leave?" Laughter rippled through the room, the sounds bouncing off the marble walls and attracting attention. A photographer positioned nearby quickly captured an image, remarking to his colleague, "This'll go viral. Homeless hippie crashes elite gala." Rose's fingers curled more tightly around her invitation, though she remained silent. Her expression stayed composed, almost otherworldly, as if the comments were water flowing over glass. Despite this, each remark stung, and the visible enjoyment others took in her discomfort felt overwhelming. Within the ballroom, a palpable excitement filled the air. Tables were adorned with crystal stemware, and each centerpiece was a lavish display of orchids and gold leaf. The stage was prominently positioned at the front, enveloped by velvet curtains, where the evening's significant announcement was to be made, the reveal of the gala's primary sponsor, responsible for covering the expenses of the entire event. Many people believed it would be Nathaniel Avery, the solitary billionaire whose corporation Avery Global functioned as an unofficial power, influencing national spending and cultural trends. His lack of public appearances in recent years had only intensified speculation, but tonight, the expectation was that he would appear. Rose secured a seat at the perimeter of the room, close to a utility entrance where servers moved between areas. She placed her papers on the table, carefully smoothing them, and retrieved a small notebook from her backpack to write down some thoughts. The woman beside her, a media heiress wearing a sapphire-encrusted gown, looked over and expressed disbelief. "Are you really writing in a spiral notebook? At the Avery Gala?" Her friend, a pop star with a platinum blonde bob, moved closer. "Perhaps she's recording her feelings about feeling so different." They laughed, not attempting to speak quietly. Rose continued writing, her pen moving smoothly, her face showing intense concentration. The gala began with a string quartet, their music flowing amidst the conversations. The host, a silver-haired TV anchor with a voice like velvet, stepped onto the stage to greet the audience. "Tonight, we celebrate not just philanthropy, but power," he announced, his smile radiant. "The Avery Foundation has influenced our nation's future, education, infrastructure, and policy, and we're here to see who will carry that legacy on." A palpable anticipation filled the room, with many heads turning, trying to locate Nathaniel Avery. Was he observing from a private box at the back? The atmosphere was charged. Throughout the evening, the taunting of Rose continued relentlessly. A cluster of young influencers, positioned near the bar, repeatedly photographed her from a distance, adding captions like "Haha Gala Crasher" and "Who let her in?" Evan Caldwell, continuing his live stream, provided commentary on her every action. She was simply reviewing her documents as if she intended to revolutionize everything. A reminder, you won't receive any funding appearing like that. His online discussion was filled with approving reactions to his humor, encouraging him to continue. A senator's wife, listening nearby, turned to her husband. It's quite embarrassing, actually. They should increase security measures. People like her diminish the significance of the event. Rose, in the meantime, was listening to the speeches. A technology leader announced a commitment of $5 million for AI research. A congressman pledged $3 million for veterans programs. Each announcement received applause, but Rose's eyes remained focused on her notebook, where she documented observations about literacy gaps in rural schools. When a waiter offered her a glass of champagne, she smiled and requested water instead. Plant-based diet, huh? The waiter remarked, half joking. You're likely the only one here who doesn't eat caviar. Rose chuckled quietly, a first indication of relaxation. Caviar's overrated, she commented, and returned to her notes. Amidst a pause in the speeches, a well-known lobbyist moved toward Rose's table, his expression difficult to miss. He took her library proposal, examining it as if it were a simple sketch. Free libraries? For those children, he stated, his voice audible to those at adjacent tables. Darling, you're misusing everyone's time. Focus on teaching yoga or your current profession. He returned the papers, one page drifting to the floor. As Rose bent to retrieve it, a passing socialite inadvertently crushed it, her stiletto leaving a mark. She chuckled without turning around. The room filled with suppressed laughter, eyes turning to observe Rose's discomfort. She picked up the page, carefully smoothing it, and returned to her seat, her expression composed. However, the atmosphere surrounding her felt oppressive, thick with the audience's amusement at her misfortune. The room's unkindness escalated when Evan and his friends came to her table. The camera continued to record, his smile expansive. Hey, library lady, he called out, his voice intended to attract attention. What's your proposal? Free books for kids? That's charming, but this is a different level. You aren't securing a meeting with Nathaniel Avery appearing as if you just emerged from a commune. His companions chuckled, and several adjacent tables echoed the amusement, their laughter rising like a surge. Rose lifted her gaze, her eyes locking with Evan's for the first time. They were bright, unwavering, almost intense. She remained silent, maintaining eye contact until he visibly hesitated, a nervous chuckle escaping him as he addressed his camera. Tough crowd. Huh? He mumbled, stepping back. The gala proceeded towards its peak. The host reappeared on stage, his demeanor serious, yet vibrant. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the moment you've all anticipated. The Avery Foundation has consistently been a source of influence, and tonight we announce not only the sponsor of this gala, but the new steward of Avery Global itself, the individual who now oversees its extensive resources, its funding channels, and its vision for America's future. The room fell silent, forks clinking against plates forgotten. Everyone leaned forward, anticipating Nathaniel Avery's imposing figure to appear. Instead, the host extended his arm toward the back of the room. Please welcome the new owner of Avery Global, the woman now responsible for all political, educational, and media funding pipelines, Ms. Rose Avery. A noticeable reaction went through the crowd, with many people turning to look for a prominent figure in a private area. However, Rose rose to her feet, her linen dress reflecting the light, her sandals making almost no sound on the floor. She approached the stage, still holding her papers, and her hair remained unbound. The room was still, with all eyes focused on her, and many people were visibly surprised. Evan's phone shifted a little, his live stream showing his shocked expression. The businesswoman wearing the Cartier necklace sputtered, coughing on her wine. The model who had previously made fun of her appearance, referencing a library look, became motionless, her hand shaking as she held her clutch. Rose entered the spotlight, appearing exactly as she always did. There was no elaborate gown, no sparkling jewels, just Rose. She placed her documents on the podium and surveyed the audience, her eyes pausing on the first row, on Evan, the influencers, and the senator's wife. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm but carried a weight that filled the room. Tonight is not simply about raising money, it is about determining who truly deserves funding. She paused, allowing the words to resonate, because I am capable of writing a $10 million check, or I can erase your name from this entire ecosystem permanently. As Rose approached the podium, The spotlight illuminated the faint creases in her linen dress, a stark contrast to the room's opulence. She placed her papers on the table, and for a brief instant the audience paused, anticipating a misstep. However, she began to speak, her voice firm, cutting through the quiet. "I am Nathaniel Avery's daughter. For 7 years I have lived among you, unnoticed, to comprehend the world my father's empire influences. Every dollar you have pursued, every agreement you have finalized, every aspiration you have financed, it has been under my observation." The room reacted, faces losing color as the reality became apparent. Evan's phone vibrated in his hand, his live stream now displaying his own collapse. The businesswoman's Cartier necklace sparkled as she held it, her empire suddenly vulnerable. Rose stood firm, her unassuming nature now a symbol of authority, her silent strength unmistakable. The stillness was absolute. Evan's live stream chat filled with question marks and surprised emojis, his viewers struggling to understand what they just witnessed. The senator's wife squeezed her husband's arm, her face drained of color. The media heiress dropped her fork, the clatter reverberating in the quiet. The crowd's astonishment intensified as Rose's words lingered. She raised her head, her eyes meeting the senator's wife who had previously labeled her a detriment to the event. "You believed I was insignificant," she stated, her voice calm yet sharp, "but I'm the one who has been endorsing your grants, validating your initiatives, observing each action you've taken. My father established Avery Global, but I am the one who has been managing it, discreetly until this moment." The room felt smaller, her presence dominating every space. The pop star's platinum bob shook as she understood her latest tour was funded by Rose's endorsement. The tech mogul's wife, who had previously belittled her as someone of lesser status, settled back into her chair, her expression showing fear. Rose's unassuming nature was no longer a source of amusement, it demonstrated her power and influence. Rose remained calm, avoiding any display of triumph, and proceeded with, "7 years ago, my father, Nathaniel Avery, presented me with a choice. To truly understand what the world requires, I've lived among you unnoticed and ordinary. I've taught children to read in crumbling schools. I've eaten meals that cost less than your coffee. I've listened to people you'd never notice, and I've built something substantial." She presented her papers, the library proposal. "This is the Quiet Power Initiative, a network of free libraries across America, starting with the kids who need them most. I'm funding it myself, $50 million to start, no grants needed." A hush lingered in the air, some murmuring, others frozen in disbelief. Rose's gaze repeatedly scanned the room, unwavering and determined. "However, let me state this plainly. This environment, your initiatives, your endeavors, your reputations are reliant on Avery Global, and I determine who remains within it. Those who create, who contribute, who demonstrate foresight, they will prosper. Those who undermine, who deride, who perceive authority as a trivial pursuit." She stopped, her look directed at Evan, then the influencers, then the businesswoman. "Your involvement is terminated." The impact of her words felt devastating. Evan's phone continued recording, though his hand trembled. His scholarship from the Avery Foundation, his White House internship, his entire future seemed to vanish before him. The influencers who had photographed her quickly tried to remove their posts, their faces pale. The senator's wife spoke urgently to her husband, who was already calling his chief of staff, attempting to save their funding. Rose did not pause to observe them. Turning back to the audience, her voice lowered, yet remained authoritative. "The Quiet Power Initiative goes beyond books. It's about providing individuals with opportunities to advance, to gain recognition, and to be listened to. I have witnessed the impact of investing in those who are often disregarded, and I am here to ensure that continues, beginning tonight." She descended from the stage, her sandals making a gentle sound, and returned to her place. The chamber filled with a combination of surprised applause and anxious whispers. The host, regaining composure, attempted to introduce the following speaker, but the audience was distracted. Everyone's attention was focused on Rose, who remained seated, calmly reviewing her notebook as if the events hadn't occurred. By morning, the consequences arrived quickly and severely. Evan Caldwell's Avery Foundation scholarship was withdrawn, and his internship was terminated via a brief email from the White House. His live stream, intended as a ridicule of Rose, unexpectedly gained widespread attention for negative reasons, and his name is now linked to arrogance and downfall. Those influencers who had shared her photos were barred from Avery-funded events, and their brand partnerships ended abruptly. The businesswoman, adorned with a Cartier necklace, discovered her company's $20 million education grant had been withdrawn and rerouted to Rose's library program. The senator's wife and her husband encountered a harsh truth. Their favored initiatives, ranging from think tanks to campaign funds, were discontinued, diminishing their impact within a few hours. By morning, the lives of the elite were falling apart. The reality television personality who had instructed Rose to depart received an email. Her Avery-sponsored docuseries, Her Pathway to Credibility, was cancelled, and her name was removed from the foundation's list. She looked at her phone, her red dress from the gala discarded on the floor, her career seemingly ruined. The hedge fund manager, who had mocked her attire, discovered his firm's $15 million defense contract had been given to a rival company, a brief message from Avery Global mentioning ethical incompatibility. The cufflinks felt like restraints now, his arrogance a tightening grip. Social media was filled with screenshots of their mockery, now accompanied by captions referencing their downfall, a clear case of karma. Viewers watching Evan's archived livestream celebrated as his confident expression transformed into a representation of his self-destruction, his future seemingly undone by the woman he'd previously dismissed as delusional. Rose, in the meantime, had already begun her work. She convened with community leaders in a small D.C. office, her cloth backpack resting on the floor, her proposal now serving as a detailed plan. The Quiet Power Initiative opened its first library in a neglected neighborhood, with plans for 50 more by year's end. She didn't gloat, didn't seek the spotlight, she just worked, her quiet power reshaping the world one step at a time. The influencers who'd tagged Rose with Galacrasher were now absent from the elite circle. Their invitations to Avery-backed events, fashion weeks, charity balls, and premieres vanished, and their follower counts plummeted as brands distanced themselves. A tearful apology video was released, but the damage was already done. Rose's team had initiated the process for excluding her from future funding. The photographer who captured Rose's viral humiliation had his press credentials revoked and was dropped by his agency. His moment of notoriety became his downfall. Across the internet, the public celebrated what they perceived as justice. Memes featuring Rose's serene face with the caption, "Never judge the quiet ones," proliferated on all platforms. Those who had previously mocked her sandals now confronted a changed situation. Rose Avery didn't just win, she redefined the landscape, leaving the established order behind. The gala's elite had dismissed her sandals, her proposals, her aspirations. They perceived her as insignificant. But Rose Avery was far from insignificant. She embodied the future, and she had just reshaped theirs. This is the impact of the overlooked. If this narrative resonated with you, like, share, comment, and subscribe for more.